some of you here is here, so let's go ahead and get started. So Tuesday, the idea was that you had, number one, we went over operating systems the other day. We installed different operating systems, 2 of them at least the other day. And you had the opportunity to use a Linux laptop for at least a week. You may still be using it. It's up to you. It doesn't matter to me whether you're using the Linux or the Windows one. And then you had an assignment to read multiple websites. And the idea that was not to really say, hey, I think Linux is better, but to give you other people's opinions of Linux. Because you guys have been using Windows or Microsoft operating systems since the day you used a computer, right? Everybody here, or every PC here at National Trail is a Windows PC, whether it's running Windows Server or a Windows desktop version, you're used to using Windows, okay? So the purpose of those readings was not, and it is not, to make you say Linux is the best operating system there ever was. I'm not saying that, okay? I'm just trying to give you an opportunity to read other people's opinions on those. And so we know there's 3 different operating systems. This is a timeline of all the Windows operating systems that we've gone through since the beginning, back when I graduated high school, 1985. And really, Windows didn't come out as a mainstay until '93, which is obviously substantially later. That's so we saw Windows 1, 2, 3, 3.1, 3.11, and then Windows 95. What's the first one you guys remember actually using? Is it 98? Probably? Or were you guys in with Windows XP before you guys really use it? It was really XP. Okay, which is 02, which makes sense. That's 14 years ago. Yeah, so. And really, Windows XP lasted for a really long time. So Windows has had a lot. It's been around a really long time, and it has over time become the mainstay of businesses and schools because of its hardware platform. Okay, it works on almost anything. Anybody can build hardware for it as long as they build the drivers for it and the software to make that hardware work. It's been around forever. And then we've got the Macintosh OSs, which have not been. And from that one reading, you actually just a link with the graph that you guys looked at. Macintosh, although everybody knows about it, has never really capped 10% of the usage, okay? And the reason is cost. There was a time back in the 80s and early 90s where Macs were cheaper for schools. They almost gave them away to schools, which is why for a long time we had a whole bunch of Macs because they were just dirt cheap and they were easier to use. But that's a thing of the past. They don't have big educational discounts. So to buy the same hardware for Mac OSs as you do for Windows OS, you're paying almost twice as much. And you could almost say that to the T, and I know Mr. Plankenhorn just went and looked at laptops, but if you looked at the exact same hardware on a Mac versus a Windows machine, it's almost twice as much. Which is why schools have gone away from it. They can't afford to. Now some schools have administrators, superintendents, head of departments that are big, huge Mac users, and they're going to stay with Mac no matter what the cost. So there are a lot of schools out there that are still Mac schools, and they're going to be Mac schools until there's a new administrator or a new treasurer that says, we just can't maintain this anymore. So Macs are one of our options, but I can't give you a test bed for Mac, okay? We have one. This is the only Mac we have in the school right there. And we got that one to set up all the, and I know this is unreadable, by the way, too small. But this is a timeline of Linux distributions, and you can see that after Linux started, it started spreading out, and we got more and more and more and more different versions of Linux available as time went on, because more people said, after it started, more people said, hey, you know, the code's there, I want my Linux to look like this. And so you got all these branches that came out, and this branch right here, that you can't read it, but that says Debian, okay? And all of these branches come out from one version, and you're using one off of Debian, okay? And Ubuntu is one off of Debian, okay? So that one branched out to all these other ones. This one kind, you can see how many branches. And this, to me, is the core of what Linux normal users use, the everyday users. Most of them like the Debian branch, and they like the Debian branch because if any software is made for this branch, all of them can use it. And that's where that software add-on, I want to add this software, comes from, okay? So if any of these versions, and there's Linux Mint right there, by the way, which hasn't been around that long, but Debian has, so all they did is take one version of it and said, we really like this one, if only it looked like this, and then they built their own branch, and that was Linux Mint. But you can go to that software folder and you can say, I want this and this and this, and all those are built on this one Debian distribution. So any of those software work up there, which is why I was willing to try Mint, because I already knew I liked Ubuntu, but Mint was the most popular, so I decided to go ahead and try that one. So you can see anyway, this by the way is back in the late 90s, back here, or 1991 when it started, versus 1985, 1985. So it hasn't been around as long, but at some point, Linus Torvalds said, let's try something new. And I don't know why he started the Linux project, but he did, and it grew exponentially from there. So the purpose of this paper is not to say that this is the best thing since sliced bread. That's why it's not a why is Linux great paper. It's a Linux versus Windows paper. It would be a compare all OS's paper if I had a way for you to compare the Mac, but I don't. Okay. So the point of this paper is for number one, for you guys to really immerse yourself in Linux a little bit to see what it's like. You've already done it with Windows. There's no reason for me to say, hey, go look at Windows. But I would like you today, while you're working on the essay, to at least Google one article that I want you to read, and I'm not going to tell you what article, on why Windows is the best thing for business, or why Windows is the best thing for education. Because although you guys have used it for a long time, you just read a bunch of stuff on why Linux is better. Okay? And I don't want this for all of you guys to be a Linux is great paper. I want it to be a comparative paper. Okay? And I really want your opinion on those questions that I gave you. I opened it. Where am I at? There we go. On the questions that I gave you on the assignment. Okay? And those were really just thought things. So you were supposed to go to all of these links and read them. And the one with all the links in it was one page with just links. You were supposed to go to a bunch of those links so you had an idea. So, which is this one, I think. Yeah. So the idea was not that you just went and looked at that. Oh, there's a bunch of pictures. I looked at all the pictures. The idea was every single one of these is a link on that topic. So they think it's better because of viruses. What do they have to say about viruses? And the idea was that you took the time, there we go, took the time to actually, it's just loading slow, to read why Linux is better against viruses. Linux does have antivirus software, and I will tell you, you can or cannot install it. Most people don't write viruses for Linux. They write them, they write them on for Windows. Because why would you write a virus that only hit 1% of the population? If you're a bad person and you're writing a virus, you're going to hit the one that hits 90%, right? So that was the idea of those. Obviously, those are all one-sided in a way that they're all about why Linux is better, but it's to make you think about the differences between the two. And this obviously is not, it's a link, but it's not a huge read. It's just to let you see where Windows is versus everything else. And if you look, this is all Windows, right? So you could add all these together and then say, okay, Mac is all the way up to 9%. Linux only takes up, we'll say 7%. And then you've got Chrome, which is, Chrome devices like Chromebooks. And then mobile devices, I'm not sure why that's on there because I don't really consider that a big thing. But anyways, you can see Windows takes a majority of the pie when it comes to that. So I expected you to read all those, and then you're writing this essay on not that you like, the questions that I want you to think about as you write this is, did you like Linux? realizing you've looked at one of 100. Why or why not? And I want you to support your position logically. If you don't like Linux, if you're like, I don't like it because it's not natural to me, because it's not Microsofty enough, and everybody's used to Microsoft, that's fine. You can support that position. And that's why I want you to look at least one essay, one blog out there someplace on why Windows is better. The second question that I want you to think about, I don't want this to be a number one, answer this. This isn't a list of questions that you're supposed to answer in this essay. This is a list of thoughts that I want you to respond to in your essay, but not paragraph number 1, paragraph number 2, paragraph. That's not what this is. Okay. So, do you think it would work in school, and why or why not? Why haven't you ever seen it before? Why haven't you used it before? And would you consider installing an older PC? Those are just things I want you to think about while you're writing this. When I assign essays like this, I'm actually asking for you to do some higher level thinking about stuff. Now, this essay is multi-part. In that, you guys are going to submit this essay, and then we're going to put it on a blog, and then you're all going to grade each other's essay and respond to each other's essays. Okay? So it has to be done before next class. Because next class, I'm going to show you how to post it on the blog, and I'm going to show you then how to grade each other through the forum. And has anybody here blogged in any other classes before? Okay, Isaac hasn't one. So if you don't know, most of what you read on a daily basis is a blog. If I go search out the subject that I just talked to you about, most likely a majority of these are actually blogs. And a blog is just some place, let's see if I can find one that I know. Okay. And most of these are, some of them are professional blogs. This is a professional blog. Okay. How is Tech Republic supported? It's supported by all these dang advertisements that are popping up on the side, in the middle. And by the way, if you don't know, have you guys done this before? If you're on Firefox and you want to get rid of all that crap, that little book button right there gets rid of all that crap for you. Have you guys used that before? I highly recommend doing that, because especially if you're doing research, I guarantee at least one of those things around the outside contains a virus or malware. And if you do that, you hit the little book button. Now all I've got is the content of my text, and the links are still there that are in the text. So there was one that I just went by real fast. Okay, so I still have links to outside stuff, but all I have is the text when I read that. Okay, so we're going to blog. We have a blog that we use in this class. And this blog is open to the outside world, and it's there forever. Okay, so if we go to our blog, which is called NTIT Tech, if you go there, you're going to see articles and reviews that students have done for the last 3 or 4 years. Okay, so when we post on the blog, we're posting to the world. If you search some of these topics, you would find the NTIT blog as one of the Google search things. So I want you to do a good job with your paper before we post it, which is why we're not going to really talk about how to use blogging first, but I want you to know in advance that it's going to be there. Okay, and your name is semi-anonymous. Okay, it's going to be your username, so it's not going to, nobody that doesn't know you or isn't from Trail is going to know exactly who you are, but it is out there. It always says who the writer is. And then on the Moodle site itself is where we're going to grade each other, and we're going to respond to each other's articles, why you agree or disagree with the points somebody else made, and critical, you forgot to do an MLA, you forgot to do whatever. Okay, so there shouldn't be a lot of quotes from other people in this article, because a lot of those were really, really basic overviews of why, this part of Linux, this thing of Linux is better or not. I'm not saying you can't, you certainly can, but I don't want to see it a ton. I really want to know your opinion on this. So, does anybody have any questions on the assignment? I know you had time to read it and hopefully got through the articles last time. Realize, just like anything else in this class, all these articles are testable, and this is not 3rd grade. So Mr. Poole doesn't assign the article and then go do story time and read you all the articles again. Okay, this was your opportunity to read the article, and it is testable material. Okay, so just because I have this on here doesn't mean I'm going to go over it again. I expected you to read it on your own. Okay, which means use your notebook, take notes if there are things out of there that you're like, that was important or that wasn't important. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to give you guys time to work on your article. It has to be done before the next class, because next class what we're going to do is log into WordPress. We're going to copy and paste it into WordPress, the blog, and then we're going to start reading each other's articles and giving feedback on each other's articles next class. Okay, so you got the rest of the class to work on. If you have any questions, please let me know. Who may or